now we've got more to say. Beat kicks and faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess. But let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talk and the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right, just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.
Mike M says, "Hey Sam, I'm watching your podcast right now, and I was wondering when you guys were talking about AI essentially being capable of doing everything humans can do, so we can turn towards a more expressive lifestyle like art, meditation, and so on. How much of a factor would a socialist type government play a part?" Wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. I guess, does socialism become more acceptable or possible in a world where AI is handling all of the human jobs?
I would say yes. I think there would be more of a socialist sentiment. If people aren't working, less and less people are working, there's inherently going to be a need, not a need, but like a feeling of necessity for some sort of socialism because people are going to think, well, if I'm not working for something, someone's going to have to give it to me. And so we're going to have all these inputs that lead to eventually the government giving us all these things. I don't know how far off in the future that is. Like, I don't think we're moving to socialism anytime soon. This is far off in the future, assuming that AI takes over all jobs. I feel like that's a little far-fetched right now. This isn't Terminator and Skynet.
I think there's probably more of a risk even in the nearer term, honestly. I think that you do not have to see too high or you don't have to see a very large swing up in the unemployment rate or in there's a lot of reasons to disagree with the unemployment rate a lot of times, just in the amount of people who lose their jobs. Like, you do not have to see too much of a tick up in that to all of a sudden like really start to see sentiment change in the world. And if we got to a point where, AI job elimination started to put pressure on unemployment sitting at 5, 6, 7, 8%, when you have a Fed that has higher interest rates that can't really lower rates because inflation will spin back up. That I just described stagflation. I think that you could get to a point where people could get fairly upset fairly quickly, and it wouldn't. I don't think it has to be something where like all of a sudden 50% of the people become unemployed overnight. I think you could see yourself in a situation even in a couple of years where all of a sudden there's a lot of pressure on the labor market, and that naturally is going to create this desire of people to socialize and fight back, and the government would have to do something about it.
I think looking at the numbers is going to be really important too, because everyone feels louder now. Now that you can read so many different people's opinions through social media or online, anywhere, it feels like the sentiment might be louder than it really is. So it'll be important to look at that data, like you said, employment rate.
Yeah, but I think it's not even the factor of people losing their job. It's also there's a scare factor of it, because if you, Matthew, tell me I lost my job because AI took it over, well, then the three of us are sitting here and we're like, shit, we're next, and then now everyone around you is scared, and it could be like really interesting and potentially like one of the biggest issues of the next decade.
It'll be a big story when the white collar workers start losing their jobs more, and not just like people in sales or like people in positions that are high turnover in white collar jobs anyway. It'll be the coders, people who, like, you're already seeing the massive companies lay off coders. Like, I think Salesforce said that they are no longer hiring
They're not
any yeah, any
Engineers. They're
coders,
not hiring
any
any.
computer
Yeah, they're not
engineers moving
hiring
forward
anybody.
because they can just have their
Hmm.
AI softwares do it. And I assume Facebook and Google and all the other massive Silicon Valley companies are going to do the same. They're just not going to spend the money on these people if they can have
Yeah.
their own software do it. And Justin, I think you probably have an interesting perspective considering that's kind of your world.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little before, like that it's common, and obviously you just said some examples of it. And it's, for the individuals that are coders, kind of like myself, it's, positioning yourself in a way that you are able to leverage the AI to make yourself as productive as five individuals, right? I'm not saying I'm productive as five individuals the way I have, but that's the ultimate goal, really, is like you make yourself so valuable as using AI to complement your skills that, yeah, they cut your entire department, but you're left standing. I mean, it sounds kind of like cutthroat, but that's honestly the opportunity that, um, people in the tech industry have, at least, is like, hey, look, there's so many things that are uh, open source. So, like, if you're not leveraging the ability to use ChatGPT or ChatGPT to have your own home projects, or just trying things out to stay on top of it, reading news articles around AI, like you are putting yourself at a disadvantage, and you are going to be the first ones cut. So for any people in the tech industry, it's not just in your best interest. It is pretty much required that you need to get on the AI train to stay, at least have some stability moving forward. But I honestly don't think it's just the tech industry. I don't see why these machine learning models are not able to read every single court case ever written, and start to build contracts in law firms, start to look at every single balance sheet that ever existed and start to balance your books at a financial firm. So obviously we haven't seen those giant layoffs, at least I'm not aware of them in those firms. They also typically have less individuals, but I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on that. I think that wave's going to come. It's just a matter of time. Like, when is that going to happen? Right.
I don't think they have less individuals. The big four accounting firms have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individuals that do exactly what you just described. Think about all the tax professionals in the world that, sure, this makes them better
that's
tax
true.
professionals,
More
but
service-based. Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said around you can be a great tax professional that's made better by AI, but there's also something to be said that I'm not a tax professional, but I could use AI to do my own taxes. So, I think
If those jobs
it's
go
going to be
away, I guess
everywhere.
if we're gonna look at the big question, if we just all these like I say because the white collar jobs. I brought up the white collar jobs because if I'm being blunt, those people, white collar jobs, are where people have the most money. People who have the most money are the ones that are able to push things through their politicians. That's just kind of the reality that we live in. The people that have more money are able to sway those changes through donations to your congressman, whatever influence you may have. And so those people start losing their jobs. When you look at the grand scheme of things, everybody can't just lose their job. Like there'll be no lawyers. I mean, there's tens of millions of lawyers in this country. Like, if are they all going to be gone? All these coders, like if there's mass layoffs everywhere, there has to be there'll be pushback. I mean, at some point, the government would have to step in and say, "This is getting ridiculous. These people don't work anymore." So that kind of goes back to, I guess, what we were saying earlier with socialism, or like a UBI, right? There will be some sort, like, if it gets to that level. I'm not saying it will. I imagine before it gets crazy, where they start laying off all these white collar workers, there would be some sort of step, probably by the government, because they would be upset that, or all these people would be upset that they're losing their jobs, and they'd be like, "Sorry, we can't do this anymore."
I was going to bring up UBI as a socialist concept, and as if people start to lose their jobs, giving people a universal basic income to just do whatever the heck they want with their lives. You were a lawyer and you were a great lawyer. We don't need lawyers anymore, but we'll still give you $100,000 a year, like go make art or something. Yeah, that seems like one way that you could sort of tamper the sentiment around AI taking people's jobs. It's like, it's okay. You actually don't have to work. People will be like, actually, that sounds pretty good. And I think it's interesting that a lot of times it's big tech companies that push UBI as a concept and as something that that should be considered like legislatively and socially. And I think that's probably because it shelters them a little bit from the impact that these tech companies will have on people's lives as things like AI progress and advance. But another part of socialism that I think is interesting is when you have AI doing the work of humans, you have fewer and fewer people who are in control of these larger companies, and the means of production is a big concept in socialism. So then it becomes a question of like who has the right, like eventually will there just be like one person who controls everything through AI, managing everything else? Or like at a certain point, do the scales tip where now ownership of the 100% AI run factory shouldn't be owned by anybody? Maybe that should be, owned by the government, owned by the people and in service of the people, rather than just, a couple of really, really large companies that have control over all of the mental labor and the physical labor, the means of production. And if you don't have labor, then it's really hard to climb that social ladder to be able to, that's the American dream. If you work hard enough, then you can accomplish anything. But if there's no jobs for you to work hard at, how are you going to get enough money to buy a factory or to buy the equipment to be able to produce the widget and sell yourself this whole dream when that whole process is already being handled at a scale that's much more impressive than you could ever accomplish. So to compete with these AI systems, to be able to have your share of natural resource or of total resources on the planet, I think is going to become another socialist issue where it's like there's the power that individuals have and being able to control their world or to manifest their own destiny. I don't know if that's the right word for that, but you lose that kind of power, and I feel like that's when socialism again starts to come in, where you start to look to the government to sort of force this distribution of wealth and power.
Let me bring us back to we're starting to scamper into the metaverse. Let me bring us back to short term. Before we ever get to a place where the government is going to say, hey, lawyer, you lost your job. Here's $100,000. Go be an artist. You're going to have a lot of pain before that. The government will react so late to this, you won't even understand. No chance that the government establishes UBI in advance of some type of mass, labor change in the world. I just cannot see that, and I can't see how that gets funded without crazy amounts of new tax. So I would say short term, you just need to be a high performer in the job that you're in, embrace and use AI, and own public equities, because those are going to reap the rewards of all of the AI efficiency. And ultimately, the people who own portions of all of these companies are the ones that will continue to reap the benefits of their profits.
Yeah, you talk about
short-term advice.
Yeah, and just as a corollary, Sam, you're talking about, fewer individuals running everything, fewer individuals actually having the means and the power of the full companies. I mean, you start to fall into the realm of different government ties, right? Like technocracies and like stuff where it's not like it's not even merit necessarily. It's the individuals that have the most knowledge around certain topics, or like certain, like obviously AI is what we're talking about, like the individuals who have the most knowledge and power to use AI, at the highest levels, not even like us, but like the individuals that actually run entire AI companies or companies that use AI. Like, so it's kind of like socialism, but at the same time, you're going to have individuals that are so powerful that what's the government going to do? I mean, they could probably whip something up and, fine the shit out of them or demand they get broken up. But like, when was the last time? Like, I think the last thing I remember the government stepping in was like, wasn't one of the airlines trying to get bought out, like JetBlue or something like that? And then JetBlue, I would have to look it up, but they, like, within the last 2 years were trying to get bought out, and for some reason the government stepped in and said like, whoa, not enough competition in the airlines. Like, that wasn't the one I was thinking off the top of my head out of things that are kind of monopolies, but you know what? I guess they're trying somewhere. So, will the government be able to stop like kind of a technocracy from forming with these big tech companies? I'm not sure. I haven't seen.
There's a reason.
Like, they talk about it, but they haven't done anything with Microsoft or Google.
There's a reason why all of the most powerful CEOs in the world were sitting in the second row right behind the presidents at the inauguration. That's not an accident.
It's not an accident,
And
it's not talked about enough.
So that's what I yeah.
With in that sentiment, I was thinking about AI, and like, I know the people up high in the tech world sell AI as a tool, right? It's just like on the All In podcast, they said, Austin, remember, they said it's like the plow. Like, when the plow was introduced, it took a lot of people out of their jobs because it was a tool that could be utilized to basically, we'll say, automated that job. And so for them, they sell it as it's a tool. We'll all be able to use it. It's not going to take our jobs. It's going to make us more efficient. It's going to lead to new jobs, like the internet, right? Like, think of all the new jobs that the internet created that never existed before. All the social media content creators, they didn't have that job before, or web developers or coders. Like, it allows you to create jobs, supposedly. In the short term, I'd agree with that. In the long term, that's where I think people's fears lies. Like, how do we maintain this as a tool and not as a company? AI needs to be maintained as a shovel, as something that you can utilize to make you more efficient in your job, and not something that, like, at some point, if AI gets so good, it literally is like, if you don't need a law firm, what, like, how does a AI that's so strong that can literally take people out of their jobs as a lawyer or all these coders, or all these companies? It's like, how does that work with capitalism? I don't think it does, because you don't have companies then. You just have software. You just have software, or you have an AI that just like makes all these decisions and does all these things. So that doesn't fit in a capitalist society, because you don't have any way for people to use their labor.
Well, isn't capitalism, produce the best, essentially at the basic level, produce the best product to make the most money, essentially. It's not like, and now obviously the word exploit is often used with capitalism, but like, you're using an AI program to do that main goal. I guess I disagree with your take that capitalism is not built for AI. I'm kind of fearful of where capitalism can take AI. Like, it's
capitalism might ruin AI.
Well, it sounds like our goals, what we believe is the goal of capitalism, is different. I find you're saying the goal of capitalism is just to make as much money as possible. I would say you don't create a model for society that doesn't work for society. Because capitalism, the idea of having a system is so that we can all survive under it. Like, we found that capitalism motivates people to continue to work because they're.
That's a fair point. If it can't motivate individuals,
then it's not a system. Then it's not something we can use.
Austin, where do you kind of land on this? Because I want to hear your take on that.
I think that it is motivating in the sense that it enables so many more people to do so many more things. What I was just thinking about a little bit is like the potential deflationary impact of AI overall. So if you just think about lawyers making $500 an hour, right? If that goes away, now I have that on my computer and it's free and it's $1, and there's like some competition amongst, where I think you still have competition is like everyone's going to try to create the best lawyer model that then you could use and buy and have represent you in a way. But ultimately, I think that all the models just kind of end up going to the same place. So I don't know how much competition amongst models will actually be on individual tasks. But I think that would be like super deflationary. And so then if everything like that becomes really deflationary, I was just thinking about like what that means for the world in general.
Does the U.S. try to pay off debt?
Well, we have to like get, I don't know. I'm like still skeptical of like the upside. This goes into what I want to talk about in my article, but the upside to AI,
Right.
why we're making all this investment, is because there is some big pot of gold on the other side that is now all of this extra growth for all companies, and that we can be more prosperous and we have more because AI is going to enable it. That has to be true though. So if that's true, right, and every company can get rid of everybody, and now all of a sudden the companies can make all the money, then yeah, I think that the government will tax the shit out of them, and you'll have some type of like sharing economy where now somehow everybody's getting a slice of the OpenAI revenue. But what I don't understand about that though is like, I also believe that these models are kind of like, they're just commodities. So I think the price of using AI is going to also go to zero, relatively speaking.
It'll be like the internet.
So it's like,
Should AI
who's
models
making
be
money?
Utilities? Should they be turned
That,
into
that's an
utility
interesting
companies?
take. I like that. That's.
I mean, I think that they are more like, I think that it's more like coal than like gold.
very
because-
yeah. I mean, coal has its coal is almost as valuable in its own way. You know.
I think
Now,
also this is like
Yeah.
real long term, right? Like for it to take, we're also just talking about white collar jobs. For it to take blue collar jobs, like robotics needs to start taking over.
Yeah, robotics.
Robotics is becoming advanced, it seems, but it's not like any of us are walking around and really seeing robots. They have like those stupid little roller ones in Los Angeles that like deliver food, but those things are not like
That was a
advanced.
job. That was a job.
It was,
They got taken.
but it's like that's not advanced. It's not.
They have them
super
in the
advanced,
movie theaters here.
relatively.
Grocery store here has little robots that walk around and check the.
Okay, I did not. I apparently
Yeah.
living in Nashville.
Check-
we're living in the
check
Stone
the
Age.
stockings.
I didn't
You should
Don't
you should
understand.
check out
In
a company
Westfield, there's all
called
these robots.
you
But
should
I
check
have
out
no
a company
robots
called
in my life.
Unitree. Unitree is this Chinese robotics company, and they have been putting out some insane videos of humanoid robots doing extremely human
Are those the
things.
ones that were at like Elon Musk's dinner or something, or was that his? Or those his?
That was his.
Those were Tesla
Optimus.
bots. Yeah.
Optimus Prime.
I mean,
Huh.
all that stuff's cool, and I'm sure at one point those robots will be integrated into our lives. But I'm not worried about it in the next like I don't know, the next 2 decades. I don't really see robots being in our everyday life. Maybe.
Just my final thought on the matter, Matt, I liked what you said about, is that necessarily a good thing? Having, increasing the profits of these companies and increasing the production. And, my mind goes to just, the state of the world and how consumer focused it is in general, and how much waste there is, and the effect that has on society, the effect that it has on me personally. Not necessarily convinced that it's a good thing for humans. It may be a great thing for companies and for profit margins and for capitalism and for society, but I'm not so convinced that it's great for humans. And I think that's the point that I start to ask, what role does government have to play in this? Like, ultimately, as a human who is, agrees to have a government, I think that's the only reason I really want a government, is to step in moments like that, where there is, something that needs to protect like humanity and to preempt some of those concerns. Because at the end of the day, people really just want to know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to pay for my house and for my kids? And so that's where their concern comes from. But I think generally, after COVID, a lot of people are reevaluating what's important in their lives and thinking, I don't really want to work. I would just rather stay at home all day and, hang out with my kids and do some of these other things. So I think there's also a rising tide of the values in society as far as, it's not the 80s anymore rising up the corporate ladder. It's more like looking introspectively as to what actually matters in your life. And I think for a lot of people that turns into things like art, service jobs, more expressive lifestyles, family. And I think that is probably compatible with AI. Like maybe it's not such a bad thing that AI takes some of these jobs that people don't want in the first place, working 40 hours a week as an accountant, and now I get to do the things I want to do. But the way that happens and the protections for people and the power involved and how those systems are used to affect your lives. I think that's probably a role for government to ensure that there's no abuses put on people who are just sort of living their lives. But Austin and Justin, like you guys said, that's probably decades into the future, and in the short term, we've still got a lot of time to play around in the sandbox and try and do the best that we can with this really exciting tool. So I don't think there's anything to be afraid of right now. I think there's really only things to be excited about, but definitely worth asking those questions about like the broader power systems and what it looks like in 20 years, because you don't want to find yourself 20 years from now where 5 people have all of the power in the world and you just literally can't do anything about it. You would rather do something sort of on the front end and start having these discussions. And so when it is time to make a change, then you're ready to do it.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we did say a lot of scary things. So, and who knows? This is all just like stuff we're coming up with on the fly that we like. It comes up as concerns in our head.
What do we know?
Who knows? Maybe somebody else has the same hesitation as us. But on the bright side, we addressed a lot of the scary things. But I'm sure we left off a lot of things that are also very exciting about AI. Because we were talking about it with the big tech companies, and they're going to use it for their social media, like Facebook, when they have AI, that's what they're going to use it. Or Google, they're going to do it so that they can make your search results better or whatever. Like stuff that, slightly might increase your life, but not that, like, I don't know, not really helping society necessarily. But you can look at it on the side of, like, we didn't even address healthcare. Like, AI will make healthcare so much better. I'm not talking insurance. I don't want to get into insurance. But I'm talking about, like
diagnosing.
Diagnosing people, coming up with vaccines or coming up with new medications, healing diseases, surgeries. AI will make
mental
surgeries
health.
so much better. Mental health. There will be so many things that AI will help with in terms of caring for human beings and coming up with new medications, new drugs, new surgeries, things just like make us healthier, hopefully. Because now that we've had COVID, everyone's scared of the next big disease breaking out, and like they're talking about bird flu right now. I heard of some crazy disease that's in like, I don't want to make up a country because I don't know exactly where it was, but like it sounded like it was like 80% death rate when not treated. So it's like people are like heightened to these stories now because we had a pandemic for 2 years, and so hopefully AI will help us. If something like that does happen again, help us come up with another vaccine or come up with medications and ways to prevent.
catch the pandemic early enough, so that things can be done to stop it. I think AI is being used to track wildfires and predict paths of wildfires. Everything going on in LA right now, it's being used to fight against natural disasters far better than humans could. So that's a great point, Matt. Especially with healthcare, I think there's that's something really tangible that people will feel in their personal lives. That AI is making a positive impact in their life with access to better healthcare. That's a really common complaint that I hear.